Hello and welcome to the Awkward Corner podcast where we talk about anything and everything to do with design. I'm Stephen, your host, and with me today is Amy.
Hello.
And SJ.
Hello.
Hello everybody. How are we all?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm tickety-boo.
Excellent.
Excellent, yeah. Today's topic.
Mm-hmm. Big one.
You're right. Influential designers. Could be controversial or not. Who knows?
Can I just say one thing though? You know, if you Google influential designers, the third person that comes up
Is me?
is Rihanna.
Oh, Nana, Rihanna.
Yeah.
Why? Google algorithm.
Is that because it's a fashion context? The
Perhaps.
designers.
I wasn't.
yeah,
it
you're
did
right.
annoy me.
Possibly.
No, it did annoy me at first, and then I thought about it. That actually, don't you think that the lines are blurred now between what people are and what they do?
Yes.
Yeah, because of the influence, that whole influencer.
Yeah.
When you think about Rihanna. Is it Rihanna or Rhiannon?
Rihanna.
We work with Rihanna.
Well, no, I just thought that was interesting that the third person that comes up. I think the first one was Zaha Hadid.
That's also quite interesting.
I think that's interesting because I never saw that.
Second one.
No, I wouldn't have automatically said that would be the first person that
Let
come up.
me Google it now, and I will tell you. Talk amongst yourselves.
I
Zaha
googled.
Hadid is one of mine.
I googled influential interior designers for obvious reasons.
Yes, so maybe the word influential designers, that's where...
It's why it's so
Nana.
catchy.
Come on.
Steve Jobs, number one.
No.
Yeah, see, that's got to be designers in context, hasn't
Well,
it?
I wouldn't
surely?
even describe
Zaha
him as a
Hadid,
designer.
number two.
No.
Rihanna, number
Nana.
3. Number 4, James Dyson. Number 5, Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh, well, okay, yeah. Well, but again, I'm surprised at Zaha and
that's
Frank
a
Lloyd Wright
random
in
list.
there. Yeah,
That's
it is.
and that really angers me.
But then I think that's the word designer. I think it's too broad.
Yeah, because I wouldn't describe Steve Jobs as a designer outright. I think he's an engineer,
Yeah.
a technician. But going back to an earlier episode, Jonathan Ive is the designer that transformed Apple's fortunes, really. Now, there's a designer. Not even in the top 5.
Not
Can't
in the top
get past
5.
Rihanna. I mean, I'd be fuming, frankly. Zaha Hadid, though, being in that as well, I think is an interesting. It's not someone I would put her in a top 5, but just generally on a search, I think it's quite interesting. And Frank Lloyd Wright, also actually quite interesting, given that he's not building anymore.
Well, but we can't argue that
Not that has to be.
can't say that they're not influential.
No,
So
I agree. And in fairness, Steve Jobs' influence
Yes.
is huge in that sense. But as a designer, who knows? Who wants to start? Who's your favourite designer, Amy?
I think I've gone a bit curveball here, actually, which is unusual for me, isn't it? So I think you have to have honorary mentions for people like Zaha Hadid,
Yes. Indeed.
Eileen Gray, Nancy Lancaster, Virgil Abloh, who is not an interior designer. He is a men's fashion designer.
Elsie DeWolf.
But if you think about the influence that fashion designers have on the retail spaces that at that high end, that the retail spaces that they showcase their work in.
Yeah, and the catwalk
I think
shows.
that Virgil Abloh for me is a particularly influential designer, if not interiors. I think though, when I looked at this,
Go on.
I started, and it was actually we've got Rihanna to blame for this.
Oh, gosh.
Rihanna got me thinking about. I'm not going to choose Rihanna, by the way. I don't know what she designs.
Clothes and makeup.
I don't know.
Fashion. I don't know. I know she's got her fingers in all sorts of pies.
I mean, she's very successful either way, so
Yeah.
we really shouldn't be sitting here slagging her off. The lines are blurred between fashion, interiors, art, photography, all of those things.
It's all design.
It's all design,
It
isn't
is,
it?
and it's all influence, isn't it?
And for me, somebody who is I think, particularly influential in contemporary culture is Ai Weiwei, the activist and artist, Chinese activist and artist, who has done lots of installations, and I think actually you can see his influence in the way that potentially exhibition design has developed.
Yeah. We'll put an image on Instagram.
Yeah.
So people are aware.
But very much like people like Cause or Jeff Koons, their artwork has started to infiltrate interiors, particularly object and furniture at some level. I mean, for example, if you think about Jeff Koons did the balloon animals, and if you think about the balloon dog, and you can get lamps.
You can get lamps.
Yeah. But then that is the whole, how a particular designer, if we're thinking about just designers as a whole, can influence the way that comes down and filters into product design, interior design.
Yeah. And trends are then influenced by these people as well. And I think Ai Weiwei, in the same way, designs these pieces that will have a knock-on effect on things that people want in their homes.
Do you the question there is, do you think that, for example, Ai Weiwei, if I've said that right.
You said it right. You said it beautifully.
Ai Weiwei. Do you think he designs for the consumer, or he's designing for himself?
I think.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with it. It's most of it is a political statement. But I think that when an artist becomes popular, whether it be a political statement or not, I think that we can take their designs out of context and create something else. I think if you look at the Cause, so Cause did the big sculptures that they look a bit like Mickey Mouse. Have you seen those?
No.
The teddies, aren't they?
No, I haven't seen them.
But they usually look quite like sad. He's also done the ones where he's kind of half of them have kind of been given anatomical insides, so you can see the heart and the lungs and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There was a big thing at Yorkshire Sculpture Park a couple of years ago, they're impressive. The big scale ones are really impressive, and that was all about a statement, a social and political statement. But now his designs have been used to create things that people have in their homes that are completely removed from that initial intent.
Right, okay.
But I think even though the intent's still not the same, is no longer the same, I don't think you can underestimate the influence that these people and their objects have on consumer-driven interior design moving forward. And Stephen's looking at me all kinds of funny, so I'm going to stop talking.
No, because I'm listening, and I think what you talk about is quite relevant. And it's quite...
Thank you. Thanks for your validation.
I know. You were waiting for that, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
I think I don't want to say you're wrong, actually. That's not what I am saying. What I'm saying is, I think there's a difference between influence and influential. Because...
Yes, I agree.
Ai Weiwei is not Nat Berkhouse.
No.
And Nat Berkhouse is in one of the top 3 influential interior designers in Architectural Digest. And I guarantee you, if you said the name Nat Berkhouse in America or even in Britain, everyone would know that. But most people wouldn't know Ai Weiwei.
Well, I didn't know who Ai Weiwei was.
No.
And I think that's the difference between influence.
Do you think someone has to be well known to be influential, though?
No, I don't.
No, it depends on their following, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Obviously.
And I think that's from my perspective. I did say it was curveball.
You did. And I like it.
That I don't think that someone has to be well known to be influential. I think there are lots of things we know who Inigo Jones is.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody with a design background, particularly in interiors architecture, will know.
Yeah.
But do you think that the name among the, let's say, masses is a well-known name?
No.
No.
And it should be, I think.
So he is influential, but it doesn't mean that he is well-known.
No.
I'm not comparing Ai Weiwei, but what I'm saying is that we've got these, and he's just one name out of a number of contemporary artists that I think have an effect, an influential impact.
They have an influential
without
effect.
us necessarily realizing or appreciating.
No, but then that also, on the flip side of that, just going back to, I've got to go back to Rihanna. If she was to then start designing spaces. Yeah.
But this is what I mean.
This is what I mean.
She's well known.
Yes.
So she's coming up on a search of influential designers, but is she an influential designer? I'd argue no.
That's what I mean. It's that kind of, it's that argument, isn't it? You're wrong.
It's very wrong. It's very wrong, because that's the point between influential and having influence. And I don't like that kind of differential. I think people who are really influential should have the influence. And it's frustrating that they don't. But whereas people with public platforms can make a line of clothes, or they can design a number of interiors, suddenly it's very influential, and it's absolute nonsense. I'm sorry, it is absolute
But again, that
nonsense.
comes back to one of our previous episodes when we're talking about the interpretations and
misconceptions
of interior design.
It is. It's exactly that.
That in its entirety is just that.
It's
there.
exactly that. Like my favorite designer is Daniel Lipscomb.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites as well.
And I love, because I see him as more than just an architect.
Very influential, but is he well known?
I think he is.
I think he is.
But
then are we,
But we're in a bubble, aren't we?
Yeah, we are in a bubble, so it's hard for us to know.
Tell us if he's well known.
Yeah. Also,
Contact
as well,
us
Philip
and tell us.
Stark, for me, was really influential to my development as a designer, in terms of where I started and how I trained.
But then that's different designers will have different influences as well, won't they?
Yeah.
Because Philippe Stark is one of those that has a finger in lots
He does.
of different
Now
pies.
he does. Back when, it was more about just purely of his product design, and his kind of ethos as a designer.
I think Daniel Lipscomb does have huge influence.
Yeah.
Because he was sort of my design hero at university, and he hadn't actually built that much at that point, but his thinking was already out there, and I appreciate that's within an established bubble kind of thing. But he's gone on to build a lot of public buildings, not just private commissions. Like, I couldn't tell you Nat Burkhouse's projects.
No.
I know it's probably a huge high celebrity client list.
Yeah.
Right? I know everybody wants Nat Burkhouse, whatever, and TV shows and everything else. But I couldn't tell you them. But does that make him any less influential? Or is that the wrong kind of influential as well? You see, that's for debate. I would like to see, this is going to sound very condescending, but I would like to see people like Daniel Lipscomb having much more mainstream influence because of his thinking and the fact he challenges people. The Jewish Museum is one of the greatest pieces of art, architecture, design, you name it, I think, of the 20th century. Just think it is. And you consider all the designers that have been through the 20th century, I still think that's one of the single most important pieces of design. That's huge influence. But I guess it's still quite niche in some ways, because not everybody would build a Lipscomb building.
I'm just thinking about, slightly off tangent from what you're saying, but not off topic. I'm thinking about the Bauhaus, right? You can't underestimate the influence that the Bauhaus have had and the people associated with the Bauhaus.
Not the band.
There are not the band. But some of their key design principles and key pieces that came out of the Bauhaus, you can see some of that in things that are designed now for places like IKEA.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But again, that's very influential.
It is.
But if you're sitting on one of those S-chair things at IKEA, do you necessarily know?
It's history.
No.
It's history and where that's come from and where the influences are. I don't think you do. I just don't think that something has to be well known to be influential. And I think that we know these things because we're in that bubble, design bubble. Do you have to appreciate it? Do you have to know the history of something to appreciate it as good design?
No, but I think you appreciate it better if you do.
You appreciate it more.
if you do, because I think it's interesting to know, isn't it? Whereas like the iPhone is a good example of that. Like I said before, Jonathan,
and I'd never heard of him
taking
before.
Dieter Rams' principles and absolutely,
I never knew that either.
Absolutely understanding how to simplify what is, or what was a very straightforward piece of equipment, which is a telephone, but then adding all these different layers to it. And it's now like everybody doesn't even think about that, do they?
No.
The influence he has had single-handedly as a designer is huge.
Since you've mentioned him, though, his name has cropped up a couple of times in things that I've looked at or read or watched.
Okay.
Which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. So I do think he is massively influential. Yeah, again, I think he is one of the most influential designers of the 20th century because of the legacy he's left. And I would argue Dieter Rams before him, because without Dieter Rams, there's no Jonathan Ive in that same sense. But it's. I would argue, like from a British perspective, and this is again my kind of history growing up and everything. I would argue Terence Conran is probably one of the most influential designers in Britain, and in a wider world, but certainly in Britain. When you think of his legacy,
yes, definitely.
Which again I think people don't appreciate, but actually probably do recognise more. And it's sad that he's no longer with us as
and
well.
Also as well now.
Yeah.
I think he's come to the forefront again, and people realise how influential he actually was because she's sadly no longer with us.
Yeah, and he was doing flatback before IKEA.
Yeah,
and everyone forgets or doesn't realise that. They always associate flatpack, certainly in Britain, with IKEA. But actually, he was doing it before that because he understood good design could come at a cheaper price if someone had the ability to take it home and do it for themselves. Way before that was an IKEA principle. But he was also influential in bringing back and working with some of the mid-century modern designers and that style and bringing that to the mainstream. Because I've talked about this before. Prior to that, it's all very chintz.
Yeah,
it is.
And it's all very it's that kind of classic British style, isn't it? But Terence Conran, I think, is single-handedly responsible for changing the high street dynamic and bringing
when you
kind
think
of
about mid-century
modernist,
modern and how that's in the interior, today's interior now, and how it influences furniture launches and furniture collections for lots of furniture designers, retailers, even high street retailers, when you think about the influence of mid-century modern.
Here's a question then.
That's a good topic though. Is it the right interpretation of mid-century modern?
Wow. Well, but that's what I was just about to say though. In terms of, you mentioned the Bauhaus. Is everything now just a pastiche of that? Because actually, did they not
nail it? Yeah.
For want of a better phrase. Because I've never seen anything that isn't either influenced or copied from that kind of Bauhaus template.
And I think if you see original, particularly product design, everything else pales in comparison, doesn't it? When you see the actual real original pieces.
Yeah, you mentioned Eileen Gray. I mean,
yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
Her work. And she's not had actually the recognition.
No.
Because of that very male influence era of the Bauhaus, where she got told to jog on, didn't she, when she wanted to do architecture. Her work, her table, her side table, glass and steel side table, you can't better that. There's so many copies and interpretations of that. You can't better that. But that's what's interesting about legacy, isn't it, though? And influence. People are buying things that they have no appreciation for, again, for that actual legacy. Where they where that has come from. Because I remember buying a table from IKEA, which is clearly influenced by Eileen Gray.
Yeah.
But yet, most people wouldn't.
Well, they wouldn't put the two and two together, or wouldn't even think about. They wouldn't think about it, where.
It's not new, is it?
No.
But it's still contemporary. It's still.
Good design is ageless anyway, isn't it?
Yes.
I think I've got an image here actually. Have you guys heard of Air de Lanox?
No.
So she was a designer around about the same time as Eileen Gray, maybe a little earlier. She was working in Paris in the 1920s. So there is quite a lot of Art Deco influence. But she wasn't just an Art Deco designer. But this is one of her cabinets.
I was looking at that picture earlier. Yeah.
It's very nice.
It's
Very
beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, it's very beautiful.
But if you told me that it was contemporary, I'd also believe you.
Yes. It's the same as
But
Eileen Grace
that is
Daybed.
that is nearly 100 years old.
Exactly.
And again,
that's
it's
a
that
perfect example of good design. It's timeless.
Yeah, and again, it's about that influence that we don't even. I mean, that's Air de Lennox is not a name. Is not a name that we know of particularly well.
No, but shouldn't then we be pushing at like new designers should be actually trying to then say something new though on the back of this kind of argument?
What is new?
I wonder
though?
50 years from now, which designers now would
I don't know, but
stand
when
the
you
test
think
of
of the
time.
technology and the ability to design things the way we can design them now compared to 100 years ago, you would really think that actually designers should be taking that on again.
When was the last time you saw something though, and you went, "Wow, I've never seen anything like that before"?
That's my point. I can't genuinely think about that.
Have we just
Because-
got to a point where there is no longer anything new, and is that not really depressing?
But how much of that is like people, educators who teach that kind of thing, which is good design, and you should know about these people, then influencing a new generation of designers
who have been
who
influenced by a
recognise it
totally
and
different
see it
generation of interior
and
designers.
just kind of repeat it. Like I look at some of Tom Dixon's work, not his lighting, but certainly his furniture. It's mid-century modern.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's nice, but
yeah.
it's mid-century modern. It's got nothing new to say. And I find that the influence of that kind of element of where does it stop
And
so
start
that
again.
so that it's influencing people to be better rather than
But then we are, I think in this particular context, we are talking about furniture design, aren't we? And sort of like the evolution of that
Yeah.
and how that's.
we are, because that's where I think architecture has
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah.
I think it continues to evolve, and somebody like Lipscomb has totally and utterly redefined the genre with deconstructivism.
Yeah.
Do you think though that there's a danger with things like product design and furniture design that when somebody becomes very influential, and I'm going to use air quotes there,
Yeah.
they almost stop trying because what you want is one of their designs. Talking of Tom Dixon, everybody wanted Tom Dixon lights, didn't
Yes,
they?
they did.
Yeah.
So there was no need for him to push any further barriers
barriers,
because that was recognisably his work and everybody wanted it. Why would he need to do anything else? I've got a Tom Dixon, just digressing slightly, bottle opener, and it's so bloody heavy. I'd never want to use it. Could kill a man with that. And it's like, it's not
practical.
It's not practical. I'm not going to put it on a shelf so everyone can see it. It's just in a drawer somewhere.
But it's Tom Dixon.
But it's Tom Dixon.
See, and that's the point, isn't it? That's the point, is where I think influential design or influential designers should push people to want to do better things, not necessarily copy what they're already doing. And I think we've hit that plateau. I think part of that is commercialism, though, because now people just want to sell stuff, whether it's buildings, whether it's bottle openers,
But then it's
or
that
whatever
whole.
it is.
They don't care about where it comes from or what the history is. They just want it because it looks good, and that's what people have got at the moment because that's what's trending.
Exactly. We could talk about this.
We could.
For ages, and I reckon we'll probably come back
But
to it.
I do like the question. In 50 years' time, which designers now will people be talking about?
I reckon we'd come back and say exactly who.
But I think that would be a good question to ask.
It would.
it out
It
there.
would. Tell us.
Yes.
Tell us who you think.
Yeah. Who you think in 50 years' time? Me, hopefully. When I've made it to the top of the Architectural Digest.
You're a funny guy.
Right, I know. That's what they come for, eh? Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this. Tell us who your favourite influential designers are and the reasons for doing so. You can do that via our social media channels and also our email. It's all in our bio. Let us know. We're interested, and share any other stories that you might have as well with us. Yeah. Other than that, it's been fun. Come again to the Awkward Corner, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
TTFN.
Goodbye.